Dawn Nakagawa, Executive Vice President of the Berggruen Institute. Really delighted to have you with us, Dawn.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
So could you tell us a little bit about the history and mission of the Berggruen Institute?
So, we're relatively young. We're 10 years young, actually, this year. And we started off very much with a focus on political governance and trying to increase the fortunes of democracy at a time where we felt its legitimacy was waning. And this was after the aftermath of the financial crisis in 2007, 2008. It was a time when China's authoritarian model of capitalism was doing quite well. The country was growing very quickly, and the fortunes of China and other countries were rising. And we just felt that democracy, because of the waning fortunes of the middle class, was in need of, a boost in its legitimacy. And we felt the way to get there was increasing the capacity of governance to deliver the goods, essentially. And so we were really focused on that for about 5 years, I think, until we started to realize just how much the world was changing around us. And it felt to us that tweaking the system of government we had and the system of democracy, representative democracy that we believed in, was not going to be enough. The transformations that we're undergoing as a human community, largely driven by globalization and technology, are unprecedented. And we feel we're sort of at the beginning of a curve of massive transformation. And what that calls for is a real wholesale institutional reform of our political systems, our economic systems, our social systems. We really have to try to understand this moment of transformation we're going through, to truly see it for what it is, and then develop ideas that allow us to adapt to it.
I know you talk about wanting to reform both the political system and, even for that matter, tweaking our capitalist system. I think just so everybody zeroes in on these changes, I know one of which is, let's say, climate change. Could you just sort of highlight the major changes that we're experiencing?
The one that we've focused the most on is technology and how technology is driving change in our society. I mean, one of the most profound insights that I think we've come up with in a little while is the nature of how society is being affected by networks. Networks are shaped and they run in very different ways than societies do. Societies are vertical, they're hierarchical. Those pyramids rely on small groups of people at the top being in power and a limited number of people at the bottom having access to that power. So that's sort of the way we've managed ourselves in an industrial, analog, capitalist society. But now we've moved into much more networked society in which people self-select into groups based on their interests, based on their values. They join those groups and they almost immediately have a voice in those groups. They don't rely on somebody being a gatekeeper or giving them access. The dynamics of networks are flat. Things run very, very quickly. Power is not defined by having limited number of people having access to large amounts of information, and few people having access to them. It's actually the opposite of that. It's the people who have the most nodes of interaction and the people who have the most interactions with each other that seemingly are the most powerful.
Are you saying that, and I'm not wedded to any of it, but you don't have a two-party system, you're saying? You won't have, I'm not sure what the substitute would be. Or would you have something that resembles like an anarchy? I mean, where these sort of militia type groups operate? Where do you think that it takes us?
Well, I mean, that's a very good question. And that is exactly what we're trying to figure out. We do know that once you start to understand that people are self-selecting into networks, they're not confined to the societies they were born into, that geography is less and less relevant in defining who we are as people, right? 100 years ago, there were no choices, right? You were born somewhere, you pretty much grew up there. If your dad was a farmer, you were a farmer. If you were a woman, you raised the children. There were no choices. And now we've come to a place where even the body that we're born into does not define whether I am a man or a woman. We have gone to a place where we have almost infinite choice, and where the geography of where I'm from isn't actually the bigger part of my identity. My identity is my values, is the community I choose to interact with, and I find those people online. And so I think the point in terms of the implications for a political change is that if geography is less and less relevant to who I am and who we are as people and how we identify, then should our political system still be organized around geography? And if not that, then what are the alternatives that we should be looking at? And I don't have answers to what those alternatives are, but I have an instinct that we're going to be moving away from something that's geography based into something perhaps that's more values based. Now, I don't mean that in all different levels. There are, to a certain extent, you're going to live in a city, you're going to live in a community. We have to make decisions together if we're living in the same space, as long as I have a physical body. So politics will, of course, always be partially geographic, but will it also take on a different kind of dimensionality that reflects who we choose to be?
Yeah, even the role of social media in politics has changed dramatically. We saw it in the 2008 campaign, really, with Barack Obama, and it played a significant role with Trump. There's little question about it. He was far more effective, frankly, so it would appear, at using, social media. But it's very hard for, having been in government, so hard for those systems to adapt so quickly. But let's go to one of the other issues that you really zero in on, at least in terms of what I've read and saw you at the Kellogg Innovative Conference. You were terrific. Is the fact that technology's role in eliminating jobs. And the prediction that 47% of the jobs as we know today could be threatened in 20 years. That's really a profound change.
Yeah, it is. And it's something that we're definitely concerned about. And I think there are different dimensions of that problem. I mean, one is, yes, definitely the relationship between capital and labor is changing, because that capital, in terms of robots, in terms of really smart technologies, can now think and do. And they never get tired, and they learn more and more, and they're way faster than us cognitively, and so on and so forth. So I think there's an inevitability that capital is going to take a larger role in the economy and labor less of a role. Now, where we'll land on that equilibrium, I don't know, because maybe 47% of the jobs we have today will be eliminated. But I have sort of infinite faith in the capacity for humans to reinvent themselves and to find purpose and to stay busy and productive. Throughout time, humans are really good at doing that. And I think we'll continue to find ways to do that. I think the institutional change we need to make, though, is to change our education system and change our culture in some ways. Right now, we penalize people who are not part of the formal economy. We're really pretty ruthless to them. And I think we have to change our minds about what that means, because not everybody is going to have the same kind of role in the formal economy as we did in the past.